So Gamescom was this week and Xbox stepped in it again. Let's talk about it a little. So they've announced that the Indiana Jones game is going multi-platform. And we aren't talking about Xbox players getting a year and a half of exclusivity with this. We're talking a matter of months after launch. Yes, Xbox gets it on Game Pass, so they don't have to buy it. But again, when you're trying to sell systems, it's a weird move. But as a longtime Xbox gamer, the exclusivity part isn't what bothers me. Because generally speaking, Xbox has been my preferred gaming console going back to the original Xbox. The only year where that really shifted a little was the Xbox One generation, but that was a catastrophe of a launch. Everybody admits that. Even the hardest core Xbox fan is like, oh, yeah, that stunk. So I delayed a little bit on that one, and it really wasn't until backwards compatibility came in. And it was like, oh, yeah, a lot of your games that you had on the 360 are coming over. Then it was like, okay, I can upgrade now because a good chunk of my games are coming on here. So I generally don't have a horse in the race because I always end up with all three. So where a game lands doesn't matter so much to me because given if a game is on a PlayStation and a game is on an Xbox, odds are I'm going to play it on the Xbox. That's just my go-to. It's not that I dislike the PlayStation. It's not that I dislike Nintendo. Like I said, I always end up with all three. It's just the Xbox. I like the UI. I generally like their console or their controller better. So I generally lean that way. So exclusivity, it's nice. It gives a signal of health and strength to the ecosystem, but as a general gamer kind of thing, I don't really care. I would prefer being able to just play whatever I want on whatever system I want. That's kind of more where I'm at, but that's neither here nor there. So my problem is that they aren't being transparent, that oftentimes the way that they talk about things makes them come off like they're lying, or at best they're misrepresenting what's going on, and that erodes my confidence in the brand because now I'm sitting here going, okay, do I buy that next game that isn't on Game Pass? Because do I want to keep adding to this digital library that may one day go poof? So here's some things that I think would make this kind of news land better, because obviously there's a lot of people out there who are Xbox fans who are not having it. They are not liking this. So one of the biggest things, and this, obviously is something that Xbox would have to do to really break from tradition, which, I mean, if you're going to do that with exclusives, you may as well go all the way. But one of the biggest things is this notion that you have to have this big, grand reveal. And that's when you do all your info dump as to what the console is, what kind of features is it going to have, what does it look like, all of these things. I don't think you need to really do that. I mean, you can still have a grand reveal when you're really ready to like show off the actual thing that's going to be in your home. Price point, release date, you can still have that big grand hype reveal. But I think we've moved beyond that. I think we're at a point where you don't need to rely on that solely. And I think given the way that Microsoft is going with a lot of this stuff with the exclusives, you almost need an extra level of transparency as to what you're doing in regards to the ecosystem and hardware, which means that you have to pull the curtain a bit. You have to have more dialogue around what you're working on. Because let's just take the last 6 months where There were the original 4 announced. They said there were, well, nope, it's not going to be Starfield and Indiana Jones. And then here we are a few months later. Oh, it's Indiana Jones. I mean, it's pretty obvious it's going to be the whole slate, period. Now, let's roll it back a little. What if, during all of this stuff, Xbox was being completely transparent on everything they're working on? Instead of us hearing rumors and rumblings and all this kind of stuff about, oh, they're working on a handheld, oh, the new console they're working on, it might have Steam on it and Epic Game Store and be more of a console based PC that you can take not only your Xbox library, but you can bring in your Steam games, you can bring in your Epic Game Store games, and it's going to be this, all in one thing that brings PC gaming to your living room in a seamless way. I think that if that's what they're doing, if they were more transparent about that, if they've got these deals locked up, and they came out and they said, hey, guess what? Here's what we're working on. Now, obviously, this is going to change over time as we work on things, and some stuff works, some stuff doesn't, but this is what we're working on. We're working on this greatest, biggest, boldest Xbox ever, and it's going to have access to Steam. It's going to have Battle.net. So guess what? You can play World of Warcraft on your TV. It's going to have access to Epic Game Store and your Game Pass and all your library, and it's going to have all of this stuff, and this is what we're working on. We don't have an idea of price. We don't really know what it looks like. Here's some sketches of what we're thinking. Here's kind of some sketches of what the UI might look like, controller, all of these things. Oh, hey, by the way, we're toying with a handheld. Here's kind of what we're looking at, form factor and all this kind of stuff. These are kind of some designs we're playing with, yada, 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 yada. I think if you're walking people on that path of what you're working on, it's the internet age, people. We've been in this for like 20 years now, posting little documentaries, behind the scenes stuff of what you're working on, what you're playing with, as you're playing with features, showing what it is, getting real-time feedback, in bringing your gaming community, your customer base into these things, listening to them as you're building this thing. Doesn't mean you have to do everything anybody's saying, but at least giving that illusion that, hey, we're showing you this, what do you think? Oh, you're giving us feedback. Well, we'll take that into consideration. I think that goes a long way. So as you're announcing that you're taking exclusivity away, you're reassuring your customer base by showing them what's coming, by being transparent about what's coming, specifically for them. Because right now, all you're doing is showing stuff that you're taking away. I know I'm using the term taking away, and there's going to be a lot of people, oh, they're not losing anything. They can still play it, or they can buy a PS5. Blah, blah, blah. No. In console gaming, the exclusives have always been the big deal. So, in essence, yes, you are taking away from Xbox gamers who are Xbox gamers, because you're taking away almost a security blanket that tells them that the ecosystem is healthy, that it's going to sustain, that it's going to be around for a long time, because they're getting big selling exclusive games that move consoles. If you're abandoning that, then you need to shore up other ways. And this is the biggest way I think that they could. Will they do it? Probably not. Because they seem to be obsessed with the idea of taking one step forward and taking 10 steps back. And I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you're trying to expand your business and you're moving away from an old model, you have to do more new things to accommodate for that. especially if you want to save your original consumer base. Because just going, but we have Netflix for games isn't enough. Because I know no one wants to, a lot of Xbox, fanboys don't want to admit it, but PlayStation has their version of Netflix for games. They may not sell it that way, but it's there. I know because I'm a subscriber to it. I've got plenty of games that I've been getting on PlayStation 5 that I have not paid $70 for. So you can't really go, oh, well, we have Game Pass. Well, they have stuff too. They just don't do day and date. So that mileage only goes so far. So if I had the time to sit down, if I had the time and opportunity to sit down and talk to Phil Spencer, that's what I would tell him. Be transparent. If you're working on a handheld that's going to be coming down the line, tell us. If you're working on a console that is going to have Steam and Battle.net and all these other marketplaces in there, tell us. Tell us. Show us. Show faithful, long-term Xbox customers what you're doing, what the plan is. Like I said at the beginning, I don't really care about exclusives because I don't have a horse in that race. I have all three consoles. I usually have all three consoles. So that part doesn't bother me as much. I also have patience. So if I can't afford to buy all three consoles at launch, I can wait. I don't need to play it right away. I can play it down the line because I have so many games in a backlog. It's not a rush. Yes, there are certain games that I'll grab on launch, no problem. Xbox Game Pass certainly makes that easier to do. But if I gotta wait a while, I gotta wait a while. I don't, it doesn't bother me. But with a large library tied to the Xbox ecosystem, it's concerning because it's really kind of shaking faith in the ecosystem and the hardware. That's my problem. And that's why they need to start being more transparent. They need to show us what they're working on. They need to show us give us details on what that ecosystem and marketplace is going to look like going forward. That would be the biggest thing they could do right now to calm long-term Xbox customers and let them know that there is a future in the Xbox brand long-term. Because I'll tell you right now, I went through this with Sega. Okay. And I loved my Dreamcast. I thought it was a superior system. And when that got rug pulled and Sega left the console market altogether, that sucked. I don't want to see that happen to Xbox. So they need to really change course here and really step up the transparency. If this is the route we're going, which is essentially to be a third-party software company that happens to have their own hardware, you need to be way more transparent on that hardware. You need to be way more transparent on what's coming next. So those are my thoughts, and I'll see y'all on the next video.